All right, so today we're going to do a deep dive into something pretty cool.
Yeah.
Ibis rice.
Mm.
And you might be thinking, rice, okay,
Right.
we get it. It's a staple food.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what if I told you that in Cambodia, this specific type of rice is doing way more than just feeding people?
Right.
We're talking endangered bird conservation, serious boosts to farmers' incomes,
Mm-hmm.
and even some like positive ripples for the environment,
Yeah.
all from choosing a different type of rice.
Interesting.
So we've got some intriguing articles here, one outlining the whole history of Ibis rice,
Uh-huh.
and another from the Phnom Penh Post
Okay.
that give us a real on-the-ground look at this whole movement.
Right.
So our deep dive today is going to be all about unpacking what makes this rice so special,
Okay.
why it costs a bit more, and what that means for Cambodia and even beyond.
Yeah, I think what's really captivating about ibis rice is how it weaves together conservation with making a living.
Yeah.
You know, it's not just about saying, like, don't touch the wildlife.
Right.
It's about building a system where both the people and the environment can actually thrive together.
Kind of like when fair trade coffee became a thing, right?
Precisely.
Suddenly your cup of joe was connected to a bigger story about farmers and sustainability.
Exactly. And consumers started realizing their choices could make a real impact.
Right.
And that's definitely at play with ibis rice, too.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, let's break down what exactly we're talking about here.
Go.
Grown in select provinces of Cambodia, ibis rice is intrinsically linked to the work of the Wildlife Conservation Society.
And we can't forget the star of the show, right?
Oh,
The
yeah.
critically endangered giant ibis,
Absolutely.
Cambodia's national bird, which gives ibis rice its name.
That's right. This majestic bird is at the heart of the conservation efforts.
Yeah.
Ibis rice farmers avoid practices that harm its habitat, like deforestation and using harmful chemicals.
Right.
In fact, they've adopted organic farming techniques, which, as you can imagine, come with their own set of challenges.
The articles mention that ibis rice farmers completely steer clear of chemical fertilizers and pesticides.
Yeah.
That commitment to organic practices must be a big part of why it can command a higher price in markets like Phnom Penh.
It certainly plays a role. Consumers are becoming increasingly savvy about what they're putting on their plates.
Yeah.
And knowing that their food is grown with care without potentially harmful substances adds to the value.
But it's more than just the organic label, right?
Yeah.
Ibis rice goes beyond that by actively protecting the natural environment.
Right.
They have this no hunting policy,
Yeah.
which protects not just the giant ibis, but other wildlife too. It's really a holistic approach.
It is, and it tackles a fundamental challenge in conservation,
Yeah.
making sure that protecting the environment also makes economic sense for the people who live there
Right.
by incentivizing sustainable practices. Ibis rice helps align the interests of both people and nature.
And speaking of economic incentives, let's talk numbers. Okay. The articles mention that ibis rice can fetch a 50 to 75% premium over regular rice in markets like Phnom Penh.
Wow.
Now, that's a considerable difference.
Yeah.
Why are people willing to shell out that much extra for ibis rice?
Well, there are a few reasons.
Okay.
Firstly, awareness is growing about how our food choices impact the planet. And the people who grow it,
Yeah.
consumers are more willing to pay a premium for products they know are ethically and sustainably sourced.
It's that voting with your wallet idea, right?
Exactly. And secondly, ibis rice is just really high quality. You get what you pay for.
Right.
And people recognize that. But perhaps the most compelling reason is that this premium goes directly back to the farmers, providing a stable income and encouraging them to stick with these wildlife-friendly practices.
So it's a win-win for both the farmers and the environment.
Absolutely.
The Phnom Penh Post article highlights some incredible stories of farmers whose lives have been transformed by growing ibis rice.
Oh, wow.
We hear from Phan Van, who made over $2,500 from his rice in 2023,
Wow.
which allowed him to invest in livestock and even improve his home.
What struck me about Phan Van's story was the sense of pride he felt in contributing to conservation.
Right.
It wasn't just about the money. It
Yeah.
was about being part of something bigger than himself.
Mm-hmm.
And that feeling seems to be echoed by other ibis rice farmers featured in the articles.
Absolutely. Chandara, for example, appreciates the stability of having a reliable market for his ibis rice.
Okay.
And Santrae Nim feels more secure knowing she has a guaranteed buyer for her harvest at a good price.
This speaks to a crucial point about how sustainable development should work.
Yeah.
It's not about charity. It's
Mhm.
about creating systems that are economically viable, socially just, and environmentally responsible.
Right.
And from what we're seeing, Ibis Rice seems to be achieving all three.
And it's not just one organization working in isolation.
No.
There's a whole network involved.
Right.
We've got USAI, the Wildlife Conservation Society, Conservation International, and several others all collaborating to make Ibis Rice a success.
Yeah.
It really highlights how much can be achieved when different groups come together with a shared goal.
Collaboration is key, especially in a complex field like sustainable agriculture.
Right.
You need expertise in conservation farming practices, market access, and so much more.
Right.
This collaborative approach is what allows Ibis Rice to not only protect the giant ibis, but also address wider environmental and social challenges.
And the benefits go way beyond just the rice itself.
Right.
The articles point to cleaner water, healthier ecosystems, and a stronger sense of community in the villages where Ibis Rice is grown.
Yeah.
It's a ripple effect of positive change.
And that ripple effect extends to consumers like you. By choosing Ibis Rice, you're directly supporting those positive changes, not just in Cambodia, but potentially on a global scale.
Okay, so we've established that Ibis Rice is doing some amazing things.
Yeah.
But how does this whole system actually work in practice? Like, who's making sure the farmers are really following these sustainable practices?
Right.
And how does this rice actually get from a field in rural Cambodia to a market in Phnom Penh or even to another country?
Well, that's where those partnerships we mentioned come in.
Okay.
Organizations like the Wildlife Conservation Society and Conservation International are working directly with the farmers, providing training on organic farming techniques and monitoring their practices to ensure they meet the Ibis Rice standards.
So there's actual oversight.
Exactly.
It's not just a label slapped on a bag of rice.
It's not just a label, no. There's a rigorous certification process involved.
Okay.
Including regular inspections of the farms and testing of the rice to make sure it's genuinely organic and meets the quality standards.
Okay.
This helps maintain the integrity of the Ibis Rice brand and reassures consumers that they're getting what they pay for.
That makes sense, but how does the rice actually reach the market?
Right.
So we're talking about small-scale farmers in remote areas. And getting their product to bustling cities like Phnom Penh or even overseas seems like a logistical challenge.
You're absolutely right. And that's where an organization called Sansamlup Pro, or SMP, plays a critical role.
So they're like the bridge between the farmers and the consumers.
Precisely. They connect Ibis Rice farmers with buyers, both within Cambodia and internationally.
Okay.
And they're not just a middleman. They actively work to ensure fair prices for the farmers and facilitate access to those markets where consumers are specifically seeking out sustainably produced high-quality rice.
Now that you mention, restaurants and things like that, I'm suddenly craving some delicious Cambodian food.
Me too.
Featuring Ibis Rice.
Yeah.
But seriously, it's amazing to think about the complex journey behind a simple bowl of rice.
It really highlights how interconnected our world is, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The choices we make here, the food we buy, can have a direct impact on people and ecosystems on the other side of the planet.
It's like that butterfly effect thing in action.
Yeah.
Small changes can have big consequences. But with Ibis Rice, those consequences are positive ones.
Absolutely. By supporting this initiative, consumers are creating a ripple effect of positive change.
Right.
From protecting endangered species to empowering farmers and promoting a more sustainable approach to agriculture.
It's inspiring to see how something as seemingly simple as choosing a different type of rice can have such a profound impact.
I know, it's amazing.
But this brings up another question.
Yeah.
What are some of the challenges that Ibis Rice faces?
Okay.
Surely it's not all smooth sailing, right?
You're right. There are definitely challenges.
Okay.
One of the biggest is competition from conventionally grown rice.
Okay.
Which is often cheaper because it doesn't have the same environmental and social safeguards in place.
That makes sense, especially in a price-sensitive market.
Yeah.
Convincing consumers to pay more for Ibis Rice, even when they understand the benefits, can be an uphill battle.
Absolutely. And then there are the logistical hurdles of getting the rice from remote villages to markets in Phnom Penh and beyond.
Yeah.
This requires efficient transportation networks. Proper storage facilities, and stringent quality control measures throughout the supply chain.
Right.
any weak link can disrupt the entire system.
And I imagine climate change is a factor too, right?
Of course.
Erratic weather patterns and extreme events like droughts and floods
Yeah.
can't be good for rice production.
You're spot on. These climate-related challenges can impact rice yields, making it harder for farmers to maintain a steady income.
Right.
And potentially even driving up the price of IBIS rice further.
Right.
It's a constant battle to adapt and build resilience in the face of a changing climate.
So even though IBIS rice is doing great things,
Yeah.
it's still facing some serious headwinds.
That's the reality of any initiative that's trying to shift the status quo. There will always be challenges. But what's important is that the people behind IBIS rice are actively addressing these challenges.
Okay.
They're constantly innovating, finding new ways to reach consumers, improve farming techniques, and build a more resilient system that can weather the storms, both literally and figuratively.
It sounds like they're not just hoping for the best.
No.
They're actively creating a better future, both for the people of Cambodia and for the environment.
Exactly. And that's what makes this story so compelling.
Yeah.
It's not just about a product, it's about people coming together to create a more just and sustainable world.
Right.
And that's something worth getting behind.
Okay.
Speaking of getting behind it,
Yeah.
let's shift gears for a moment.
Okay.
And talk about what our listener you can actually do to support this initiative.
All right, let's break it down.
Okay.
First and foremost, if you can find IBIS rice where you live, buy it.
Yes.
Put your money where your mouth is, as they say.
Yeah.
You're just getting a delicious and nutritious meal. You're making a conscious choice to support sustainable agriculture and conservation efforts.
I completely agree. And even if you can't find IBIS rice locally, there are still ways to contribute.
Okay.
Spread the word. Tell your friends and family about it. Share the story of IBIS rice on social media.
Right.
Raising awareness is crucial for any movement trying to create positive change.
It's like that old saying, vote with your dollar.
Right.
But in this case, it's more like vote with your grocery list.
Yes, exactly. And remember, this isn't just about IBIS rice.
Right.
It's about supporting sustainable agriculture as a whole. Look for certifications like fair trade and organic when you're shopping for other products too.
Yeah.
Your choices matter.
And don't be shy about asking questions.
Yeah,
Find out where your food comes from, how it was produced, and what impact your purchase has.
absolutely.
The more informed we are as consumers, the better choices we can make.
That's such a crucial point. It's about becoming conscious consumers.
Right.
Taking the time to understand the story behind our food
Yeah.
and making choices that align with our values. And IBIS rice offers a fantastic example of how those choices can truly make a difference.
It's a powerful reminder that even seemingly small actions, like choosing a different type of rice, can contribute to a larger movement for positive change.
And that's a message worth spreading far and wide.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here.
Yeah.
We've explored what IBIS rice is all about, its impact on farmers and the environment,
Right.
the challenges it faces,
Yeah.
and how we can all play a part in supporting this incredible initiative.
Absolutely.
But before we move on, I want to circle back to something you mentioned earlier.
Okay.
The connection between conservation and economic development.
It's a relationship that's often seen as a trade-off, but IBIS rice shows that it doesn't have to be that way.
You mean that we don't have to choose between protecting the environment and improving people's lives?
Exactly.
That we can
Yeah.
actually do both?
We can do both. IBIS rice demonstrates that we can find solutions that benefit both people and the planet. It's about finding that sweet spot where conservation and economic development go hand in hand.
And that's a really hopeful message, especially in a world that can often feel full of bad news.
Yeah.
It shows that positive change is possible even when faced with complex challenges.
Absolutely. And it reminds us that we all have a role to play in creating that positive change.
Whether it's through our consumer choices, our advocacy, or our support for organizations like the Wildlife Conservation Society, we can all contribute to a more sustainable and equitable future.
And that brings us to a fascinating question.
Okay.
How does IBIS rice manage to balance these seemingly competing interests?
Right.
How do they make sure that the pursuit of profit doesn't compromise their commitment to conservation and the well-being of the farmers? That's something we'll delve into in more detail in the next part of our deep dive.
It's a delicate balancing act for sure.
But I think one of the keys to IBIS rice's success is their focus on transparency and accountability.
So it's not just about, like, good intentions.
Right.
It's about actually having systems in place
Yeah.
to make sure those intentions are translating into, like, real-world results.
Exactly, and that's where the collaboration with those various organizations comes in.
Right.
Remember those regular farm inspections
Mm-hmm.
and that rigorous certification process we talked about?
Yeah.
Those are crucial for ensuring that the IBIS rice label genuinely represents what it claims to be.
Makes sense. Without that kind of oversight, it'd be easy for things to slip through the cracks.
Right.
And the whole concept of like ethical consumption could lose its meaning.
Precisely. Consumers need to have confidence that when they choose IBIS rice,
Right.
they're truly supporting sustainable practices and making a positive impact.
Yeah.
And that confidence is built on transparency and accountability every step of the way.
So let's dig a little deeper into that. How does IBIS rice ensure that the farmers are fairly compensated for their hard work and commitment to these sustainable practices?
Right.
We've talked about the price premium, but how does that money actually get back into the hands of the farmers?
That's where Sansom McCullough Prey, or SMP, plays a vital role.
Okay.
They act as a liaison between the farmers and the buyers, both domestically and internationally.
Okay.
But they're more than just a middleman. They're advocates for the farmers.
So they're not just about facilitating transactions.
Right.
They're actively involved in ensuring a fair deal for the farmers.
Absolutely. They help negotiate prices that reflect the true value of IBIS rice,
Mm-hmm.
taking into account the costs associated with organic farming and conservation efforts.
Okay.
And they work to create stable market access for the farmers. So they're not at the mercy of fluctuating prices or unreliable buyers.
That kind of stability must make a huge difference for the farmers, especially in a world where commodity prices can be so unpredictable.
Oh, absolutely.
It's like knowing you have a safety net, a guaranteed market for your product.
Exactly. And that security allows farmers to focus on what they do best.
Right.
Growing high-quality rice in a way that's both environmentally and socially responsible.
Mm-hmm.
It empowers them to invest in their farms, improve their livelihoods,
Yeah.
and build a better future for themselves and their families.
It's truly a virtuous cycle.
It is.
But of course, no system is perfect, and I'm sure there are still challenges to overcome.
Right.
We touched on things like competition from cheaper rice and the impacts of climate change earlier.
Mm.
But are there other obstacles that IBIS rice needs to navigate in order to truly thrive?
You're right. Challenges are inevitable, especially when you're trying to do something new and different.
Yeah.
One challenge that comes to mind is the issue of scale.
What do you mean by scale?
Well, IBIS rice is still a relatively small-scale operation.
Okay.
It's concentrated in specific provinces in Cambodia
Right.
and relies on a network of smallholder farmers.
Mm.
Scaling up production to meet growing demand while maintaining the integrity of their sustainable practices is a complex task.
So it's a balancing act between like expanding their reach
Yeah,
and staying true to their core values.
exactly. And it requires careful planning and strategic partnerships.
Right.
They need to ensure that as they grow, they don't compromise the quality of their rice
Mm.
or the well-being of the farmers and the environment.
It's like walking a tightrope.
Yeah.
One wrong step and the whole system could become unbalanced.
Right.
But it sounds like they're very aware of these challenges
They are.
and are taking proactive steps to address them.
Absolutely. And another challenge worth mentioning is the constant need to innovate and adapt.
Mm.
The world is changing rapidly and
Uh-huh.
consumer preferences are evolving.
Yeah.
IBIS rice can't afford to rest on its laurels.
Right.
It needs to stay ahead of the curve.
So it's not just about doing things right. It's about doing the right things
Yeah.
and constantly evolving to meet new challenges and opportunities.
Precisely, that might involve exploring new markets,
Mm-hmm.
developing new rice varieties that are more resilient to climate change,
Right.
or finding innovative ways to connect with consumers and tell their story.
It sounds like they're embracing that idea of continuous improvement,
Yeah.
constantly striving to do better.
Mm-hmm.
But let's shift gears for a moment
Okay.
and talk about something we haven't really touched on yet,
Okay.
the consumer experience.
Right.
We've discussed the benefits for the farmers and the environment,
Mm-hmm.
but what about the person who actually buys and eats IBIS rice?
Yeah.
What's their experience like?
That's a great question, and it's a crucial one.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, the success of IBIS rice hinges on consumer demand.
Right?
People need to not only feel good about buying it, but also enjoy the experience of eating it.
Right. So beyond the feel-good factor of supporting a good cause,
Yeah.
what are the tangible benefits for the person who chooses IBIS rice over regular rice?
Let's be honest. Sometimes ethical choices can come with a compromise on quality or taste.
Sure.
Is that the case with IBIS rice?
Not at all.
Okay.
In fact, many people would argue that IBIS rice is superior in both quality and taste compared to conventionally grown rice.
Okay, now you've got my attention.
Okay.
Tell me more. What makes it so special?
Well, for starters, ibis rice is known for its unique aroma and flavor. The organic farming practices used to grow it actually enhance these qualities.
Okay.
The rich soil free from chemical residues and the natural biodiversity of the surrounding environment all contribute to a more complex and nuanced flavor profile.
So it's not just about being good for you and good for the planet. It's actually a delicious and enjoyable eating experience.
Exactly. And because it's grown without harmful pesticides and fertilizers,
Right.
you can feel good knowing that you're not consuming any unwanted chemical residues. It's a healthier option for you and your family.
That's definitely a selling point for me.
I'm all about making choices that are good for my health and the environment without sacrificing taste.
And let's not forget the cultural connection.
Oh, yeah.
Cambodian cuisine is renowned for its fresh, vibrant flavors. And ibis rice is the perfect accompaniment to many traditional dishes.
Right.
By choosing ibis rice, you're not just enjoying a delicious meal, you're experiencing a piece of Cambodian culture.
I love that idea of food as a cultural bridge. It's a way to connect with people and places beyond our own immediate experience.
Exactly.
So ibis rice is tasty, healthy,
Yeah.
supports sustainable agriculture, helps protect endangered species.
Right.
What's not to love?
Exactly. And it's a great way to add variety to your diet and explore new culinary horizons.
You know, as we're talking about all this, I keep thinking about something you mentioned earlier.
Okay.
Ibis rice is just one example of how our everyday choices can have a ripple effect. It makes you realize that we're not just passive consumers.
Right.
We have the power to shape the world around us with the decisions we make,
Yeah.
even seemingly small ones, like choosing a different type of rice.
That's such a powerful realization, and it's a reminder that we're all interconnected. Our actions have consequences, both positive and negative.
Right.
And by choosing consciously,
Yeah.
by supporting initiatives like ibis rice, we can contribute to a more sustainable and equitable future, one grain of rice at a time.
That's a beautiful thought.
Yeah.
It's like we're all part of a larger web of life, and our choices can either strengthen or weaken those connections.
Precisely. And it's about recognizing that we have a responsibility to make choices that benefit both ourselves and the wider community,
Okay.
both human and ecological.
Okay, well, I think we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
We've explored the inner workings of ibis rice, the challenges it faces,
Right.
and the incredible impact it's having on the farmers, the environment,
Yeah.
and even the consumers who choose to buy it.
That's
But before we wrap things up, I want to touch on one final point.
okay.
The future of ibis rice.
All right.
What does the road ahead look like for this inspiring initiative?
That's a great question, and it's one that we'll delve into in the final part of our deep dive.
Okay.
Stay tuned.
Okay, so we've really dug into like all the details about ibis rice, the impacts, the challenges, the whole system that makes it work.
Right.
But now I think it's time to look ahead.
Okay.
What does the future hold for this initiative that's like
Yeah.
linked conservation, sustainable farming,
Right.
economic empowerment, all in such a remarkable way?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And like anything that's pushing for positive change, the road ahead for ibis rice is bound to have both like exciting opportunities and potential roadblocks.
So let's start with the exciting stuff.
Okay.
Where do you see the most potential for growth and expansion?
Well, one area that immediately comes to mind is market diversification.
Okay.
Right now, ibis rice is primarily sold in Cambodia and a few select international markets.
Right.
Expanding its reach to new consumers around the world could make a huge difference.
That makes sense. The more people who know about ibis rice
Right.
and have access to it, the greater the impact.
Exactly.
But how do they reach those new markets?
Yeah.
It's not just about putting it on a shelf and hoping people buy it.
Exactly. It requires a multifaceted approach.
Oh.
Strategic partnerships with retailers and distributors who share their values are crucial. And they need to continue building their brand awareness, telling their story in a way that resonates with different cultures and audiences.
We live in a digital age, so I imagine social media and online platforms play a big role in that.
Absolutely. They've already done a great job using those channels to showcase the faces behind ibis rice, the farmers, the communities, and the incredible biodiversity they're working to protect,
Right.
sharing those human stories.
Yeah.
The passion and dedication behind the initiative is key to building an emotional connection with consumers.
It's not just about selling a product.
Yeah.
It's about inviting people to become part of a movement.
Precisely. And speaking of movements, there's a growing global awareness of sustainable and ethical consumption.
Right.
More and more people are making purchasing decisions based on their values, seeking out brands that align with their commitment to social and environmental responsibility.
So you're saying Ibis Rice is perfectly positioned to tap into this evolving consumer consciousness?
I think so. They're already ahead of the curve in many ways.
Right.
But they need to keep innovating, refining their messaging, and finding creative ways to engage with this growing base of conscious consumers.
But even with this growing awareness, there's still the challenge of competition from conventionally grown rice,
Right.
which is often cheaper. How can Ibis Rice appeal to consumers who might be hesitant to pay a premium price,
Yeah.
even if they appreciate the ethical and environmental benefits?
That's where education comes in. It's about highlighting the value proposition of Ibis Rice. The superior the health benefits of organic farming,
Right.
the positive impact on communities and ecosystems,
Okay.
and showing how that value outweighs the slightly higher price tag.
It's about reframing the cost as an investment.
Yeah.
An investment in a healthier planet, a more just society, and even a more delicious meal.
Absolutely.
But beyond market expansion and consumer education,
Yeah.
what other opportunities do you see for Ibis Rice in the future?
One area with immense potential is product diversification.
Okay.
Right now, they primarily focus on white rice, but there's a whole world of possibilities within the rice category itself.
So think different varieties of rice.
Exactly.
Maybe brown rice, red rice, even specialty rice blends.
Precisely. They could even explore value-added products.
Okay.
Like rice flour rice noodles or ready-to-eat meals featuring Ibis Rice.
Right.
This would not only create new revenue streams, but also allow them to cater to a wider range of consumer preferences and dietary needs.
It's all about finding innovative ways to leverage their existing resources and expertise to create new and exciting products that align with their core values. But as with any journey, there are bound to be bumps in the road.
Sure.
What are some of the potential challenges that Ibis Rice might face in the coming years?
Well, we've already touched on the challenges of competition and the need to adapt to evolving consumer demands.
Right.
But another significant hurdle is climate change.
Okay.
Rice farming is incredibly water intensive.
Right.
And climate change is already causing more frequent and severe droughts in many parts of the world, including Cambodia.
So the very resource they depend on most is becoming increasingly scarce and unpredictable.
Yeah.
That's a daunting challenge.
It is, but thankfully the folks behind Ibis Rice are keenly aware of this threat and are already working on strategies to mitigate its impact.
Okay.
This includes investing in water-efficient irrigation techniques, exploring drought-resistant rice varieties, and working with farmers to build resilience to extreme weather events.
It sounds like they're taking a proactive, solutions-oriented approach to this looming crisis.
Yeah.
But beyond climate change, are there other potential roadblocks on the horizon?
One concern that sometimes comes up with ethical initiatives like Ibis Rice is the risk of greenwashing.
Right. For those who aren't familiar, greenwashing is when companies or organizations make misleading claims about their environmental or social practices, actually trying to capitalize on the growing demand for sustainable products without actually doing the work.
Precisely. And it's something that Ibis Rice needs to be very mindful of as they grow. Transparency and accountability are paramount.
Right.
They need to be able to back up their claims with concrete evidence and be open to scrutiny from consumers and watchdog organizations.
It's about maintaining that trust and ensuring that the Ibis Rice label continues to represent genuine commitment to sustainability and ethical practices.
Absolutely. And that's an ongoing process.
Right.
It requires constant vigilance, self-reflection.
And a willingness to adapt and improve.
Yeah.
But I think the team behind Ibis Rice has demonstrated a deep commitment to those principles.
Right.
And I'm confident they'll continue to navigate these challenges with integrity and transparency.
Well, this deep dive into Ibis Rice has been incredibly insightful.
It has.
We've learned about their innovative approach to conservation and sustainable agriculture. The positive impact they're having on communities and ecosystems.
Right.
And the challenges and opportunities that lie ahead.
Yeah.
It's truly a remarkable story of human ingenuity, collaboration, and a shared commitment to creating a better world.
I agree.
But before we wrap up, I want to leave our listeners with one final thought.
Okay, go ahead.
Ibis Rice is just one example of how our everyday choices can make a difference.
Hmm.
It's a powerful reminder that we're not just passive consumers.
Yeah.
We have agency.
Yeah.
We have the power to shape the world around us with the decisions we make.
I agree.
Whether it's choosing a different type of rice,
Supporting local businesses or advocating for policies that promote sustainability and social justice.
right?
Every choice matters.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
It's about recognizing that we're all interconnected and that our actions have consequences, both big and small.
Yeah,
By choosing consciously,
right.
by supporting initiatives like Ibis Rice, we can collectively create a more just equitable and sustainable future for generations to come.
So let's keep asking questions, keep learning, keep challenging the status quo, and
Yeah.
keep making choices that align with our values.
Absolutely.
Because together we can create a world where both people and nature can thrive.
Here's to a future filled with delicious, ethical, and impactful choices.
Cheers to that.
And that concludes our deep dive into the fascinating world of Ibis Rice. Thanks for joining us.